Okay, good afternoon. Uh, um, Good afternoon. Welcome to the June the 8th, 2026 meeting of the WVU Faculty Senate. Um, the meeting will come to order. The first item of business is the approval of the meeting minutes from the May the 11th meeting. The minutes are attached to today's agenda. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. First up will be my report, which is, I'm sure from your point of view, pleasantly brief, given where we are on the calendar. First, I want to thank all of you who took part in graduation weekend. For those of you who did go to the commencements across the weekend, we heard from some great speakers, especially like Ms. Level at the Statler one, Professor Wagner from this building school was really, really great. And I always enjoy how the university takes the time out to honor some of our best, most popular, most distinguished faculty who are retiring as serving as grand marshals in those events, like for Beverly College, Bonnie Brown, for Creative Arts and Media, General Hambrick. It's a really nice way to honor the faculty as part of what we do. But of course, also, primarily these are events for our graduates and their loved ones. And I really appreciate all of y'all who took part in the weekend to make a better and more memorable weekend event for all of them. We don't have a ton to do today, but I did want to make one note since we have our new incoming provost today. Our leaving interim provost is not here today. But I did want to say that even through these last few weeks, from many people's point of view, summer is already upon us. Paul Kreider has been extremely available to the Faculty Senate leadership for this entire time period. He's going to continue to be for the next week or two. And I really do want to thank him for his service, even though he's not here today. He's been really great at staying involved with Senate and the many, many, many different kinds of issues that we bring to him. So thank you, Paul, for that. Finally, I wanted to say a few words about something that's coming up on the agenda later today, which is the idea of merging 4 of our committees into 2 of our committees. And the idea here is that that would be kind of the first part of a larger reorganization of the Senate committees that we would continue forward into the fall and maybe even to the spring of 26, 27. I have heard from many of you that you feel overextended in your service activities, and I understand this.
We lost the podium. We cannot hear the meeting anymore.
Thank you, Dean Paris. And Dean Tyne is not here, correct? Okay. Oh, he was here right now. Perfect timing. Then I would also like to invite to the front of the room our new Dean of the Eberly College of Arts and Sciences, Clayton Tyne, if you would like to say a few words of introduction to the assembled faculty senators. Apologies for the surprise on like the agenda setup.
Okay, I'll say a few words. Hey, good to see you, buddy. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I didn't come with prepared remarks. I will say that it's great to be here. Everybody's been so friendly and nice, and I could not be more excited about the position. I understand the important role that Eberly plays in the university in terms of helping build that foundation and also building bridges throughout the university. And I'm eager to continue that tradition and even strengthen the ties that we have. In terms of like what this body is all about, I could not think more of shared governance and the role of shared governance. I was on the faculty senate at the University of Kentucky, where I'm coming from. I served a term on the faculty senate, and for the last 4 years, I've been Associate Dean of Academic Affairs, where I've worked extensively with our shared governance processes to bring. See, last year we created 5 new majors alone. I think that shared governance process is critical. Not only is it's a good as an end in itself. I mean, democracy is important, but just as important is we come to better decisions. We come to better solutions. We come to a better product for our students, our faculty, and our staff when we work together and we show up with a shared understanding of what's important and trusting each other. This university, and we care about who's here. So the shared governance is critical to me. It's critical to how we'll operate, and I'm just super excited.
Multiple items at one time. Today's consent agenda includes annexes 1 and 2 from the curriculum committee. This is the course change report and the new course report, which includes 7 new courses from medicine, pharmacy, Eberly, and Potomac State. Does any senator wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Then we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. The consent agenda is agreed to. First up today, in terms of our committee reports, is the curriculum committee report from Ron Reeser.
Hi, Ron Reeser, Statler College. Other than the annexes that you have been told about, we have nothing to report. I'm happy to try to address any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Ron?
All right, hold your applause.
Okay. Thanks, Ron. Next up would be the General Education Foundation Committee report from Cody Hood.
Are you all able to hear me okay?
Sort of.
Okay, the audio on the Zoom is going in and out. So we have very little to report, but we have reached out to all of the appropriate associate deans, and they're going to hopefully disseminate that survey that we have been speaking about over the past academic year to the appropriate faculty to update the information in Chem. We don't expect to have too much movement on this until everyone's back full-time for the fall, but we did want to get that out so everyone had some time to work on and collect their thoughts and ideas related to it, and to ask any questions that they have any during the summer. So that's the end of my report. I'm happy to answer any questions related to that.
Any questions for Cody? Any questions online? Thank you, Cody. Next up is the Teaching and Assessment Committee report from Ashley Sowards.
I'll follow along with the short committee reviews, but we have finished reviewing all of the spot redaction request surveys that were submitted from spring of 26. With the exception of the law school, they're on a little bit later timeline. So they have until this Friday to get those requests in, but those were reviewed by the TACO redaction subcommittee, along with a member of the provost team. And all of those faculty have been notified of the outcome. And then I'm working with Brian Meredith to get those redactions taken out of there. So that should wrap it up. With Spot, if anybody still has questions that they would like to be considered for inclusion on the survey, we're always accepting those and reviewing those. So that's it.
Any questions for Ashley? Cody and Corey. Thank you. All right, this will take a little bit longer. The committee's report from Leslie Cottrell.
Just a little bit. No. Leslie Cottrell, School of Medicine. Let me first start by just thanking our committee, or COCMC this year. As you all know, we're pretty quiet during the year, helping to maintain committee reports and rosters, but then it really hits us in April and May. And so each person gets a couple of committees, 2 or 3 committees that they need to fulfill the full roster. And there's a lot of logistics and a lot of this can go here, but not here. And so I really appreciate them for their time. We had Tech and Potomac State representation. And of course, our leadership next year will be Danielle from, the divisional campuses. And so I really appreciate everyone doing that. And for everyone working, we had a significant increase in volunteerism, in people jumping in for leadership, in questions about what this entails, which then also led to some of the items on the agenda, or contributed to some of the items of the agenda, which is looking at our committees, as Scott was saying. In general, when we look at it, and particularly for this year, and Scott has mentioned it, we have 13 committees. It's not necessarily a problem finding individuals to serve. The issue is over time, people fall out, and there's a growing overlap in questions that come up in certain committees. Not that the charges overlap, but the discussions within those are very similar. And so Corey's often in the position and the chairs of those committees to make sure that the other committee who's discussing this is tied in and we're not duplicating effort. So that's one. Secondly, there are, I will say that in our discussion about the resolutions and the plan moving forward, there's not a reduction in members. So for example, the first proposed connection or combination has the same amount of members as faculty welfare has had historically, and our diversity group. Additionally, when we were talking about this and the 2 that you have this year, additionally, we wanted to make sure that the historical knowledge about those committees are in place. And so those discussions there have been many discussions that have happened, what needs to be in place, what kind of structure, what kind of prompts, what wording needs to be, and what you now see as the charge. Okay, of course, with flexibility of any additional changes. But that's the work that's been done up until this point. So with that, I'll start with the first annex, which you've seen, which is combining the faculty welfare, inclusion, and diversity committees, those 2 committees. And I'm not sure, do you need me to go through, everyone's seen the resolution, but do you want me to go through that?
Sure.
Did you say yes or no? Or no? I didn't.
Corey's bringing it up.
Oh, you bring it up. Okay.
I don't think you made it. What? I don't think you made it. Mm-mm. Well, he's
While they're pulling that up, I will say, we thought, obviously you have 2 to discuss and vote on that we felt based on those, the work that they've done and our conversations, we felt would be ready to merge if you deemed appropriate and approved. There are others that were proposed and discussed. that we need to spend more time. These two can do the same, but just our discussion felt that these two combos were ready if you were fine. So so do you want me to go through it even though it's up? No? Okay. So the committee charge of this proposed merge committee is also listed at the bottom there and in that annex. And with that, I'll just stop talking for a little bit and take questions and provide additional information if that's fine with you. How did you want to? Do you want to do each at a time?
Yeah, we should do them one at a time. Yeah.
Okay. Any
Are there, so I guess we should just do questions about one and then. Okay, so.
you want, okay. So the ultimate, as you see, as you go down through the resolution, is that the committee proposes a motion to combine these two committees for the 26-27 academic year with this revised charge.
Is there a second? Thank you, Daniel. Second. Debate, yeah. I'm finally learning by the June meeting. Is there any discussion on the motion? Oh, yeah. You're usually over there.
Yeah. Joe Jones, College of Creative Arts and Media. Leslie, I completely kind of trust you in this whole committee and how this all works. I do get a little nervous when we start seeing DEI stuff getting abolished. So I just wonder what were the actual like outcomes or outputs that this DEI committee had like last year? Is there anything, I don't know, that merging these two units would actually maybe make disappear, or I don't know, like I haven't really heard much come out of this committee. So I'm just kind of curious about what actually merging the two would do as far as outputs.
So if I could defer to Daniel, I will say that given certain events, it's been limited. This is my view. And so the merger would perhaps assist with that.
Okay.
But let me turn that question over to you if you don't mind.
Daniel Brewster, Eberly College of Arts and Sciences. I chaired the Faculty Welfare Committee the last 2 years. We've already been doing this work. With kind of like the culture, statewide that was happening with DEI in general, like it already started to fall under faculty welfare, probably even 3 years ago. And so we've already been doing this stuff. And I served on that diversity, equity, inclusion committee, and we didn't even meet for an entire year. So like, this is the way that it doesn't get lost, I think. So.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you.
Joe, I would also throw in for both of these two mergers, just the history of the committees. The Diversity and Inclusion Committee, I forget exactly which year, about 2018 was when it was created. And likewise, the Student Recruitment Retention Committee is also a pretty new committee. And so arguably, there already were other committees that were doing things tied to what the new committees were doing. And to an extent, when they were created for specific tasks. And I think some people in the Senate, our impression is, think that once that initial set of actions was completed, that it kind of makes some sense to sort of collapse them back more in the way that they were before.
But again, also to your point, I just reiterate that the structure, when you go to the roster for next year, I would argue that it's strong representation and a historical knowledge from that committee, from both committees.
Is there further discussion? All right, then the yeas and nays on this first merger. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed? Okay, that passes. Leslie, would you go on to the next one, please?
All right, so we're going to turn from faculty experience to student experience, and this one's slightly different. As Scott mentioned, the student recruitment and retention was just recently new, several years. Miriam has led that for us. The other one, the student rights and responsibilities, has been one of our committees, and we're responsible for identifying individuals who would serve on trials or meetings when a student integrity issue comes up. So the actual charge, once you are called into one of those meetings, is really coordinated by another unit. And so with that, we were talking about in terms of the logistics, we're still talking about all of student experience or a breadth of student experience and the weight of identifying individuals to serve on those, or the responsibility could still fall easily within that single committee, that combined committee for students' rights and responsibilities. They need to list the names for individuals who could be called and available at that time if something were to arise. Student recruitment and retention is very active and involved. And then that, even with the combination, they would still have, we increased the number and they would still have the room and the opportunity and the manpower to do a lot of what they're doing. And we've seen some data crunching and really looking at some of the things that faculty could do. So we didn't want to really thwart that momentum forward in this merger. But this would bring all of our business related to student experience into one committee. So with that, and hearing seeing the resolution, I would put forth a motion to combine the student recruitment and retention with student rights and responsibilities for a new student experience committee.
Is there a second? No, thank you. Discussion. Okay.
Hi there, Catherine Fonseca, W Libraries. I wonder if there was any discussion about merging the student rights and responsibilities with the academic technology, just because it came up a lot, turned it in, a lot of surveillance, tech, ed tech was a big topic of conversation for the Student Rights and Responsibilities Committee this year, as well as graduate student ombudsperson, and that sort of student rights aspect is, I think, a little lost in this focus on academic integrity specifically. So wondering if other groups in this merger came up.
Yes, yes. And other combinations came up. Academic technology came up related to this one. It also came up related to potential with TACO, because teaching assessment, it's like, which piece of academic technology would you pull? And so that is an example of a committee that in our end of year report, we have proposed to take next year to take a closer look at that and some of the larger committees and see if what other combinations make the most sense. But yes, that did come up.
Okay.
We just didn't put it here because it could go easily in a couple others and it wasn't clear.
Okay. I did have another clarifying question, if that's, so you said the roster is the same this year for continuity and knowledge transfer. Is the idea, because Scott's saying it's time saving for faculty, eventually to whittle that roster down in subsequent years?
For these committees?
The merged committees.
Definitely could. We did not want to touch that.
Sure.
Throwing this out, but
Okay.
definitely could. And just want to clarify that there are not everyone from last year is repeating. There is enough to provide, that connection, that bridge into something new. But we didn't fold in the exact same roster into next year for any of the committees.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Leslie, as a clarifying point there, what you mean by them being the same is that the calculations you use to populate every committee were the same when you combine those calculations of this number of senators, this number of faculty members, et cetera, student, but it's not necessarily the exact same faculty numbers.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We use the same recipe.
Is there further discussion? No? All right then. On to the yeas and nays. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. All is opposed. All right, thank you.
Okay. So, and again, just before we go on to Annex 5, please take a look at our end of year report because it does provide a little bit more information about what we were asking of the Senate next year for committee combinations, potential combinations, and what that might look like. But it would involve the whole Senate as well as this committee and leadership, of course. Okay, so with that, Annex 5 has the most recent, as you can imagine, the version changes as people change their minds or respond to emails. And so this is the current version that we have of all rosters for our committees next year. And that's for approval. So the committee would like to place a motion for review and approval.
Is there a second for Annex 5? Thank you. Is there discussion? All right, yeas and nays, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed? All right, the resolution passes. Moving on to the next report, also from Leslie Cottrell.
More than you all wanted. BOG would be pretty quick. We are, this week is when we start our subcommittee meetings. Again, the June is the final budget discussion and approval meeting. It also includes our faculty presentation, and we'd love to have anyone who's interested. That's part of the public portion of that. We're highlighting many of you, our colleagues, and then for any discussion and additional input, that's fantastic. So most of the subcommittees are meeting virtually this week, some going into next week, and then the full meeting is at the end of next week, Thursday and Friday.
Any questions for Leslie about the BOG?
Leslie, can you just verify when is the meeting, the Board of Government meeting that you're presenting?
So Thursday and Friday, next Thursday and Friday.
Is that the 18th and the 19th?
Yes.
And then what time would be the public portion? What time are you and Scott actually presenting to them?
I don't think we know this yet.
You don't know that yet?
This was just moved to Zoom this afternoon.
Yeah.
So the hour by hour of it remains to be figured out.
So it's not in person? The 18th and 19th?
It is not in person as of this
The
afternoon.
baseball,
Oh, the baseball. Yes. And Juneteenth, right? Probably too. I'm sure they were concerned about that. Okay. Thank you.
but please still join us.
No, Joe, when we find out, we will send out a message about this. We definitely want to encourage faculty participation. But we just don't know yet. Any other questions for Leslie about the BOG? All right. Thank you, Leslie. Jason, you do not have a report, correct? Okay. We have a brief report on the service grant from the Service Committee on the Community Engagement Grant recipients. Thank you, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren Prinzo with Extension. The Service Committee Chair this year is Becca Fint-Clark with Extension, but she's hosting a 4-H camp. So I serve with the committee ex officio and am giving an update on her behalf regarding the community engagement grants. So overall, the Service Committee received 37 applications in just under a month. So we were excited with the number of applications that came in with the return of these community engagement grants. I'm very thankful to the reviewers from the Service Committee and the members of the Research Committee who jumped on to join so that we could have enough reviewers to cover that number of proposals. We ended up funding 9 proposals, which I believe Corey has linked in the agenda for you to view, and will also post to the Faculty Senate website for a total of $60,000 in awards. And next year, we are currently slated for $30,000 of awards to give out for community engagement grants again. And a quick thank you also to Melanie Page and Deanna Messenger, Chris Symes in the Provost Office, and Erica Kraft with WVU IT, who helped navigate the various systems to get everything moving again. Any questions?
The file is broken that's attached to the agenda, so Corey's going to fix that.
And I will say also for the record to thank Becca for serving as the chair of the committee and taking on this task in the year that the grants are coming back as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. All right, now it is my pleasure to turn it over for our guest report from our incoming provost, Beverly Winland.
Thank you, Scott, for the invitation, and thank you all for being here today. It's really wonderful to be here, and I really want to extend my gratitude for the warm West Virginia welcome that I have received ever since January, and then it's just been building since I've been able to relocate from St. Louis to Morgantown. And so I'm really, really happy that I can now call West Virginia home. And as I've begun settling into the state and spending time with the people of West Virginia University, I've already developed a deep appreciation for this institution, for its mission, and for the strong sense of community that exists here. Although I officially begin my role on July 1st, I've already been working hard to get to know WVU and its people, and I'm looking forward to becoming even more deeply engaged in the months ahead. As Scott already mentioned, I do want to take a moment to express my deep gratitude to Provost Kreider for his leadership and his service during this important transition period over this last semester, and the service that he has committed to the university. So I would like, even though he's not here, I want to give him a round of applause. I've really, really appreciated the support and the information and just the generosity that he's shared with me. So even before officially assuming this position, we've already been making some meaningful progress in several important areas. So as you have already met our new Dean of Libraries, Mark Paris, that was one of my first unofficial acts as incoming provost, was making that decision to hire Mark. And just to reinforce something he was talking about, I really see libraries as an extension of the laboratories and the research activities of our faculty and our students. And he and I talked about that during the interview process. Libraries are where that research support really needs to start. That's where the sources of information that you have to consult to support your work and your grant preparations and all of those things. And I also know that the libraries really are almost like the laboratory for many humanities scholars. And so thank you, Mark, for agreeing to become our new Dean of Libraries. I'm excited about what you're going to bring to the university. And you've also met our new Dean of the Eberly College, Clay Tyne. I'm super excited to work with Clay as well. As a former Dean of Arts and Sciences myself, I know what a thrilling and exciting and challenging job it is. And I know that we've got the right person in place to help propel the Eberly College forward. We also are making early progress on 2 additional leadership searches. So the search for the next Dean of the College of Law has relaunched, remaining under the guidance of Chambers College Dean Josh Hall. And I'm currently chairing the search for the university's next Vice President for Research. And so both of those are well underway at this point. The next Vice President for Research is a critical hire for WVU, given our position as West Virginia's only R1 university. While this position will report directly to President Benson, there will also be regular engagement with the Office of the Provost, because research, again, is a key thing of what our faculty are engaged in, and we need to make sure that that's as strong as it can be. The search and the selection process for each of these important positions requires significant time and dedication. And I just want to express my gratitude to the faculty and the staff members who are serving on these search committees, and to everyone who's been engaging through the processes throughout. So we've been having open forums and town halls, and just, we want to get as much input as possible from the community, and in particular from the faculty for these searches. As we continue to move forward together, I want to emphasize that my approach as the incoming provost is going to be proactive. I believe strongly in getting out in front of challenges and opportunities rather than simply reacting to them. At the same time, I'm highly process-oriented and collaborative in my leadership style. I will be seeking input from faculty, staff, students, and university partners as we work toward positive and meaningful change across the institution. I know that periods of transition can create uncertainty and anxiety, and I want our campus community to know that transparency, communication, and shared governance remain important priorities to me. I tend to view change as opportunity, and we are sitting on the cusp of tremendous opportunity right now, and I'm really thrilled to be a part of it. One of the goals, as everyone knows, that President Benson has established for us is to aspire to membership in the Association of American Universities. I want to just make it clear that to me, this focus is not solely on achieving a designation. Our focus is on strengthening West Virginia University and ensuring that our faculty have the support and the resources that they need to do their very best work. By elevating the excellence that already is present across this institution, we will be in a position to get ourselves increasingly competitive for AAU membership. So what it really is about to me is strengthening what we already have and just supporting our faculty doing their best work. And what that will ultimately do is position us to be attractive for AAU membership. So we're not just going after the membership and chasing metrics and whatever to like meet somebody else's goals. We want to meet our own goals. And when we meet our goals, then we will be ready. Importantly, this effort is going to be intentional and strategic. We're going to be developing a thoughtful approach with sequenced goals and a clear implementation plan. We're not interested in simply talking about aspirations. We're committed to strengthening the frameworks that support and inspire excellence among our faculty, across our research, our teaching, our academic programs in meaningful and measurable ways. Most of all, I want to say how much I'm looking forward to our work together. Success at a university like WVU is built through collaboration with our deans, with the faculty senate, with faculty and staff across the campus, and with the entire university community. So I could not be more excited about what lies ahead. And I'm so grateful to be serving alongside all of you as we continue a strong future for West Virginia University. So let's go, and thank you. I'm happy to take your questions.
Hi, Joe Jones, College of Creative Arts and Media, formerly of the Reed College of Media. Provost Wendland, first off, thank you so much for your time today. If you recall, you offered to meet with us online, excuse me, and I said no because you weren't being paid yet. You're not being paid now, but you're here, so I'm going to ask you a question. I like this idea of you being proactive, especially because I do think as a faculty body, we need some love and attention. And I'm wondering what you see your role as far as creating a sense of community amongst faculty particularly. Is that something you see that needs proactive approaches, or is that something that should happen organically amongst faculty? And if you do think that's one of or something that falls under the Office of the Provost, maybe what some ideas you might have to create that sense of faculty community amongst like across the disciplines?
Sure. I really appreciate your question, Joe. So in fact, Matt and I have already spoken about taking up an approach that I used at WashU, my prior institution, where at WashU, the chair of the Faculty Senate Council, which is sort of the equivalent body of this one, and I were meeting at least monthly, and maybe, yeah, it was roughly every month. We would have either a lunch or a coffee and donuts with a small group of faculty, just to get to know people, have people meet each other, and to hear just what's up and what's going on and how we could help. And so that's one of the things that Matt and I have talked about implementing. And so I'm going to be working to get those scheduled starting sometime in August, hopefully. And so that's one idea. You know, I still need to like get the lay of the land and so forth, but You know, in general, like getting people together and getting them speaking with one another in ways where you're not just like getting to a group like this and then talking to the people who are already your friends, right? How do you get people to develop, you know, really knowing one another across the institution? And it can be hard to set those things up as just social events because those are easily overwritten by other priorities. And so, you know, trying to think of things where there would be some kind of programming event that is not super heavy, but would be broadly appealing, followed by a reception. So you get people there for a reason that counts, right? But then you can get, you know, work together, meet up and talk about things and while you're eating your cookies or something, or some of my sourdough bread. You know, the other thing is having committees that do the kind of work that this body does together, right? Like I have found that when you get people in working in committees across the institution, where you have a sort of a longitudinal set of engagements where you get to know one another better, starts to create some of those networks across the institution. And so those are just some of the initial sort of low-hanging fruit ideas. The other thing that I really am hoping to be able to do is to support some seed grant kinds of funds that will support activities of all different sorts that will have a requirement for a collaborative effort there. And then we'll just have to figure out some ways that we can create those opportunities for people to meet one another so that we can develop those initial seeds of brain collisions that create the exciting collaborations that I know are unrealized right now.
Great, thank you. And just one quick plug for the Humanities Center, which does fall under the library, headed by Sharon Ryan, and it's programming that is available to everybody. This year we did a programming with like the humanities and STEM. So I would encourage all of us here to kind of think more about the community events that happen that we can all kind of get along with and get to. I love meeting people, like when I go to teaching things, and I want to meet more of you, and I think we need that here at West Virginia. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for offering that. And any other ideas that people have, I'm very open to hearing input and ideas and feedback.
Hi, Eric Horstick, Eberly. Thank you again for meeting with us before you even officially start. So I wanted to just ask about some of your, well, first actually an idea to your meeting groups is I would maybe encourage you to also find ways of blending faculty and staff. These are groups that don't talk to one another or understand our roles in the greater operations of the university, and leadership is making their decisions across these groups. So I think it's important for us to understand one another, because if we don't understand what each other do, we don't appreciate the impact. But that's a side plug. But just thinking about your visions for the university moving forward, especially with the strategic compass that President Benson has laid out, with aspirational goals like moving towards AAU membership. My comment or asking about your vision is filtered through my role as also the grad director for biology. Is the university has made some high profile strategic hires, really emphasize at driving our competitiveness for undergrad recruitment and retention. And these are incredibly important. Those tuition dollars builds the foundation by which everything operates. But I'm just curious about your visions on how we do similar things in the grad sphere, or even as far as the postdoc sphere. Because as we move into these research spaces, our grad programs are our research amplifiers, our force amplifiers for these endeavors, and also quite frankly, the teaching drivers. They're some of the lowest cost, and I could even say sometimes highest quality teaching mechanisms we deliver to our undergrads as well. And grad programs as a whole not being really tuition driving or easy to fall through the cracks or kind of get nickeled and dimed. But I think this needs as much attention.
Sure.
Or not maybe as much or equivalent, but a good deal of attention as well, that I would say maybe isn't really as emphasized right now, and just curious about your thoughts or plans.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So I believe when I was presenting at the open forum back in December, when I was interviewing for this position, I spent some of my time talking about the idea of postdoc programs. I think that that is one area that is, like, I believe in graduate education as well, and that's an important facet and component of what an R1 flagship land grant university needs to do. But I feel like the postdoc piece of this is almost like it's a way in which we can really jumpstart in a more efficient way some of the research ambitions that we have. And so that to me is one of the first things I want to try to pay attention to. And I think that we can try to identify, my goal is to try to identify some new resources that we might be able to bring to developing an interesting postdoc program or two for our university, and then expand from there. But I'm trying not to be, I don't want to commit to too many things too soon. I have more analysis and assessment to do. But definitely, you know, there's a lot of graduate students out there that are on the verge of graduating. And we all know that the faculty hiring has slowed down a lot at a lot of places. And so this is a real opportunity for us to land some real plum recent doctoral students to come to WVU and help power some of our research ambitions.
I mean, I'll just
Yeah.
add to that, to almost the messaging you were delivering there. I have two postdocs. They did their PhDs with me and did their undergrad with me. So I think this is, and I know one of them even has the long-term aspiration of being a faculty, a WVU faculty.
Okay,
So
yeah,
I think exactly what you're saying. I just, not to eat up more time, but just saying that as there's real world examples
Yeah.
at play of exactly these things, and just need the room to foster.
great. Thank you. Any online questions? No? Okay. Are we good? All right. Well, thank you so much for the questions and for being here. And I'm so excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost Wendland. Next up, we have Associate Provost Evan Witters.
Good afternoon. It's good to see you guys today. Good to be here today. Thank you, Scott, for helping me be here today. I was a late add to the agenda, so I appreciate that. What I wanted to talk to you about today is to get your feedback on Turnitin.com, the AI detection module. Provost Kreider, I think in the January meeting, announced that we would have a pilot and subscribe to the AI detection module on Turnitin.com. That was a 6-month subscription at a reduced price. That 6 months is now up. It ends June 30th. And so I am collecting feedback on whether people think this is a valuable tool or a hindrance to your ability. Obviously, AI raises all kinds of problems, challenges, and opportunities in the classroom. We did an AI survey. There's a lot of polarization out there among the faculty on AI, whether it's a critical instrument for their teaching, for preparing for class, or whether they just don't ever want to hear those two letters next to each other again. It is all over the place, right? And so honestly, I'm just a little lost as what to do with this thing. And I think your feedback would be really valuable. In terms of just quick metrics, we had the module from January 1st, as I said, to June 30th, up to, I think, about middle of last week. We had 27,000 student submissions go through the module. Of those submissions, I would say about 75% showed no AI. About 15% showed all AI, and the rest were somewhere in the middle there. So definitely difficult to know, where our students are all the time. with the use of AI in their classroom. Sometimes obviously it's permitted, sometimes it's not. So we can't really tell that from the Turnitin report. Let's see, what else? The subscription would be for 1 year. It's $23,500. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm just looking for your thoughts. I was going to ask Paul Headingchair, who's our Director of Academic Integrity, to really quickly just present what he's seen in his office from the Turnitin.com and AI, generally speaking.
Thanks, Evan, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to talk about this. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts as well. Obviously, this is something I deal with every single day. And so I certainly have experiences and thoughts, but don't get the opportunity to have these kinds of conversations very often. So our office has seen a marked increase in academic integrity reports generally this year. From August 11th, 2024 to June 8th, 2025, we had received 303 reports. 80% of those made mention of AI in some form or another. From August 11th, 2025 to today, we've received 521 reports, and 90% of those have made mention of AI in some way, shape, or form. So we are seeing growth not only in AI percentages or proportionality, but also just in the raw number of reports we're receiving. Turnitin, as everyone probably has a good amount of experience with the similarity score. As we know, that similarity score is very sensitive. It'll flag things that are not in fact plagiarism. It'll flag title pages with faculty names as being plagiarized, as well as properly cited materials in those student papers. What we see with Turnitin is something similar. We have seen students' names be flagged as AI generated. We've seen title pages be flagged as AI generated. We have also, as we talk about with scientific writing, there are a limited number of ways to say certain things. And so that shows up a lot in the similarity score. But similarly, we're seeing things like that pop up with AI as well, because if there are a limited number of ways to say it, the AI is going to pick one of those ways as well. We don't have a lot of insight into kind of behind the curtain from Turnitin. They do give us these metrics that we can look at. What I can tell you is we saw a huge jump in AI reports in the spring once this was enabled. Our reports went from 71% of the fall 2024 reports mentioning AI down to 32% for this past fall. And then we made all of that up, plus got up to 90% overall proportionality just in the spring semester. So it's definitely driven more reports of potential dishonesty. I think for some students, it has helped with conversations and helped them kind of understand how they were reported to our office better. But I will say we spend a lot of time being asked to defend Turnitin and their algorithm, which we don't do and won't do, because it is not something we treat as the source of truth for whether a violation occurred. It's something that we look at as an indicator, something that can help show where a closer look may be appropriate, but our office does not take that number as evidence of per se violations of our policy. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Yep. Any thoughts?
Doug, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Doug Terry from WVU Tech, and I just want to say that I hope that you continue to subscribe to Turnitin. I use it. I teach English, English composition, English 102, English 101, and literature courses, and I found that I don't use it as a definitive measure about whether a student uses AI or not, but I think it's a good way to kind of begin a conversation if a student's essay comes back with a high percentage. And what I found is that that usually means that the student has done something like they've used Grammarly or some other kind of similar service. And so I find that it's a useful tool, and it works better, I think, than because it seems to be more reliable than the free versions that you can find online to detect AI. And so I hope that that it's kept and that we can continue to use it I have begun putting pretty much all of my students' essays through it.
Thank you, Doug. That's very helpful. I appreciate it. Yeah, especially the point where you're using is starting a conversation. I think that's key. It's not completely accurate. They don't necessarily claim to be completely accurate. So it is important that we talk to our students about what they're doing. And sometimes they just don't understand. Rules in high school, rules in middle school are very different than what they may have at the university. University doesn't have a single unified AI use policy. So it can be complicated for them to navigate those issues. But I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Hey, Dan.
Daniel Brewster, Eberly College of Arts and Sciences. Just a couple things. I think, the first thing I would say is that I think Doug's point of it's not consistent with any of the other resources is one of the most challenging things that I've faced this semester. I probably had over 400 of those things come in across I taught a lot of students this semester, and I have a lot of writing assignments in those. I think just in general, like when I put a note, I want to speak to you in my office, want to talk to you about what we have. They come in, we look at it, I show them where it's AI, and I will agree, like there's there's definitely a reliability issue with it in a lot of ways. Like my questions sometimes even populate as AI, even though they're not AI. And so it shows if they use straight, the document that I've uploaded for them to use, sometimes it'll show, and I'll say this to them. And so I think just like in general, one of the problems I've had this semester is students seem to be taking it as if they're being bullied or harassed as a result. And, I had several complaints this semester that rose to, various levels of the dean's office, et cetera, just because I had students come in because, one, I guess I would ask a question of like, what do you all do if you do find that you do determine that it was AI? How does that work out? How does that, go on? So what I tried to do was to create something, and I sit on that Student Rights and Responsibilities Committee, and we talked about this several times this semester. I want to have a conversation with them. In most of these cases, they're like, yeah, like I did, right? And I think in particular, where I saw problems were in my lower level classes, 100 and 200 level classes, where students were using very advanced theory, very advanced concepts that we had not even discussed in class. And I asked questions like, where did you find this? Because it's not even in the textbook. And they're adamant that they're writing it themselves. And so I think just in general, it's not reliable enough for us to be using, and it's creating a culture, for me at least, where I'm like, do I just move completely away from writing altogether? Because I just don't want to deal with, any number. I have a 60-person class. One of the assignments, half of them were almost at 100% AI. And so we're talking somewhere between 90 and 100. They come in and they're like, I didn't use AI. And so I just think just in general, the reliability of it is not good enough for us to be kind of basing, any kind of, standard for assessment of academic integrity. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I think that's a real issue. If it's causing more work than it's saving, the idea was to help faculty, to help students, and maybe get students to modify their behavior if they knew that people would be using it. If that's not working, then I completely understand where you're coming from, and that's the kind of feedback we need to hear.
Hi, Joy Hutchinson, College of Applied Human Sciences, and I'm kind of going to echo what he just said. What would we be using it for as a university when we're looking at the overall cost and other things that we need as a university? How would it actually benefit us? Because we know it's unreliable. I know I've got students using it, and I just ask them to please be smarter than the machine, right? But it's unreliable. We can't, if we're not using it to discipline, what is the point for us?
Yeah, it's a good point. Again, exactly the kind of feedback we're looking for. I don't have a view on this, because I think it's not all that reliable, but I do think when it says 100%, it makes a good starting point for a conversation because that is generally, I think, fairly reliable. It's everything in between all those gradations and nuances that it just may make us miss. So. Sure. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Evan. Thanks for presenting this. I had asked about how to access the AI component of Turnitin, I think maybe in January, because when I see it on my end, there isn't anything that is clear that says how we're able to actually kind of get an AI report. So I think that's my biggest concern right now is just how many faculty were able to use it. I was not this semester, but generally I'm with you. I think anything over 70-ish% to 100 is a really good indicator of where to start with a student about kind of the AI discussion. And if it's 100%, generally there are words like Daniel was saying, like quattrocento and all these other kind of like, incredible vocabulary terms that just are not familiar to students. So yeah, I guess, can we talk about how we even access it or information on the Atlassian IT pages for faculty?
Sure. We did a training and I can send you the video if that would be helpful. Generally speaking, it runs the report anytime you submit anything. So you just have to click on it, but it can be a challenge to find.
Okay, but it's just the same Turnitin that like appears in the Blackboard, like course tools, but it doesn't say anything about AI detection on that main first page.
Yeah, it runs through the similarity detector. So it does a similarity detection, and then there's another section of it that's the AI detection. So,
okay.
But I'll send you that training video too.
Hi, Catherine Fonseca, WVU Libraries. Hey, Evan. You know my thoughts on this, but I don't think we can out-surveil the issue that generative AI has brought to higher education. And I've done a bit of digging in what Turnitin reports. Their metrics are, it's a 1% false positive rate. So 1 in 100 student submissions would be flagged as false positive. They don't report false negative rates at all, but third parties have found that, a simple content search, right, which this Turnitin AI detector doesn't do a content check. It's purely statistical language checking, as opposed to faculty diving into the content itself, right? So I'll just say, if I'm not a big fan of ed tech, and we're sort of at a pivotal point where we're in this negotiation to move from a trial phase into a more permanent license. Libraries have a lot of experience with getting in bed with vendors, and they're very sweet to you at the start, right? And offer very nice prices at the start. 20,000, it's nothing, right? 6 figures Turnitin is charging universities. So I'll just add that Turnitin, if we divested from it tomorrow, I would be a very happy person, because when we submit student work to this product, they retain all rights to that. So your student's work, you are handing over licensing, right? They have perpetual, irrevocable rights to that student work that they then incorporate into their database, which they then send and sell to universities. They're selling that database in which they're checking the pool of student work. And so thinking about graduate students and the wariness that graduate students might have in having their dissertation, added to this corpus, and just thinking about student rights and responsibilities, and students' rights being their copyright, right? I just wanted to sort of add that to the conversation that is sometimes overlooked, right? In this difficulty around generative AI and plagiarism. And yeah, I wonder if that funds could be diverted to a more support as opposed to surveillance type of a framework. I would love to see Paul's office, have more sort of educational for faculty and outreach for faculty types of roles, pedagogical, the TLC, if we could have more frameworks around conversations and how to not have a combative tool that sets up these kinds of dynamics in the classroom and have it be a little bit more pedagogically useful. I would love to see resources diverted to that as opposed to a third-party vendor and lining their pockets. Thank you for bringing this conversation to the Senate.
Thank you. I appreciate the thoughtful feedback.
Ron Reeser, Statler College. I think this is a question for Paul. So it's my understanding that you do not use the AI detection results as the deciding factor. It's a first line of defense to prompt sort of a follow-up investigation. How well, I would assume these are statistics that you can have available. How well do the results that this system give you align with the actual results of your cases? In other words, how many false positives and negatives roughly would you estimate that you experience in your investigations?
Yeah, I would say I don't have a number for you right now. I can tell you anecdotally, it's a very small number end up being sussed out as a complete false positive. Almost every conversation that we end up having turns into a light bulb moment where the student realizes that having Grammarly make it sound better by substantively rewriting it substantively changes it from their own style, knowledge, skills, ability into something that's not representative of their work, which is the whole point of academic honesty, at least from our office's perspective. And so it's not so much from my perspective that there are complete false positives where nothing was used. To be completely candid with you, I don't think it's very accurate. Our office has run tests on pretty much every detection software that anyone has sent us over the last 3 or 4 years. None of them have been able to pass kind of a standardized battery of things that we put it through, at least not to any level that we would feel comfortable truly citing as a deciding factor in a case. But yeah, I think ultimately what it has led to is students coming in and saying, I didn't do anything. And we say, okay, walk me through, how did you write your paper? And we get to the end and it's, well, I had Grammarly make it sound better. And I ask them to go back in, you can see revision history, and all of a sudden they see that the vast majority of their paper no longer looks like what they wrote.
Okay. And then a follow-up question to that, if you would, please. So I don't deal with essays, I deal with source code. I don't use Turnitin service. It's not really applicable to the way I run my classes. When you investigate cases, how much faith do you put into having specific tool detected results versus not? In other words, do you consider a case more credible if there is some metric reported by a tool like Turnitin versus if I were to come to you and say, this looks like AI to me?
So it's important to know there are 2 stages to our process. So the first thing we have to decide is whether there are reasonable grounds to believe a violation may have occurred. So that's just to get to the point of sending a charge letter, opening a formal case with a student, whether that's formal or informal. And so for that purpose, those 2 would be treated the same. If we get a score that indicates that a question is worth being asked, that there are reasonable grounds to believe a violation may have occurred, we'll act on that. If a faculty member comes to us and says, hey, I don't think that this is the student's work for any reason, whether it's I think someone else did it for them or they copied off someone, if we're meeting that first threshold, we're opening that case. I think ultimately where you'll see those 2 marry back up is if we originally are focused on that score that we get from Turnitin, and we get to the second stage, which is preponderance of the evidence, where we would have to determine if the student isn't agreeing there was a violation, or we would have to determine there is one. We always go back to the faculty member anyway, because we trust you far more than we trust this algorithm. And so that's where I would say these converge at the end anyway.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the punishment for a first offense is not I don't want to say it's not significant, but usually the faculty member recommends a sanction against the student. Commonly, it's a 0 on the assignment, and that's really as far as the first offense goes, that in education. So no one's going to have this disclosed to their medical school, for instance, on a first offense, unless it's egregious. But generally speaking, we take these as a learning experience, hopefully to make the sort of risk for the student as low as possible. They can just say, I made a mistake. We can use it as a learning experience and then move on without there being really significant penalties unless something has happened that's just unusual and very severe. Hi, Miriam.
Hi, Miriam Leary, School of Medicine. I haven't used it a lot, but with all of the academic dishonesty, it feels like whack-a-mole. Every time I fix something, something else pops up. At least having Turnitin AI, where my students know there is something out there flagging them, paying attention. I think even though we have these enormous rates of it happening, I think it's keeping numbers lower than they would be otherwise. And so as an instructor that does deal with a lot of writing, I think at least it's something. So thank you.
Thanks, Miriam.
Hi, Mandy Wyrick from the School of Social Work. I will just say, I don't personally use Turnitin. I find it very clunky. It's not very intuitive, doesn't work for me. But a lot of my colleagues use it and they really like having it. I don't know that a 6-month period is enough time to really make a definitive decision. It is a tool in the toolbox because kind of without it, we don't really have anything at that instructor level except for just, we don't have anything else to run it through other than Turnitin or maybe something free we find on the internet. And certainly rather use something that's housed, in our system rather than something we find on the internet. In social work, where, it's starting to get even more sticky because our students are in field placements. They're using AI in workplace environments where they're working with clients, patients' notes, those kind of things. So, they're problem solving using AI. They are approaching, patients and clients with AI tools. They really are trying to figure out, when is it tool and when is it a deceptive practice or when is it cheating? So I don't think any of us have the answers to that. But I think the more we as instructors are using these types of tools, maybe we learn more about how to detect these, how to have those conversations, and also maybe these tools get better at how they detect AI. So, I'm on, everything everyone has said, I agree with. So there's no definitive answer, but I don't know that 6 months is enough time to really make a decision for a university our size.
It's Mandy.
Eric Horstick, Eberly. So one of my thoughts with this is, kind of the heart of the question, or one level of it at least, is ongoing resource allocation. And with that in mind, I think we should have those decisions kind of aligned with university policy and priority. So to me, it almost sounds like maybe a conversation we need to have is, as you said, there isn't a singular codified university policy, and it's obviously not going away and yet sticky issue. And maybe it's worth kind of a conversation like this at a couple levels, getting the kind of shared governance input to shaping that policy, and then how we move forward to align priority or resource investment and all that becomes a different discussion as we have that kind of guiding point. So I mean, maybe it's a little bit of cart and horse thing, is just maybe my thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. When I said there's no AI policy, that's not exactly accurate. The policy is really, it's up to the instructor. And I haven't seen any other schools who've dealt with this question more successfully than that, because there's such variation in practice across disciplines. It's really hard to essentially legislate how AI can be used in the classroom. I do know that more instructors, so at least according to our survey, 613 respondents, so it was a pretty good one, At least according to the survey, more faculty are using AI to prepare for class than are teaching AI in their class. So, students see that and they wonder, like, why is my PowerPoint slides AI generated, but I'm not allowed to use it in assignments. So it is really tricky, and we've given, the leeway to the faculty to make these kind of decisions in their classroom. I'm not sure I see a better way to do it, but I'm willing to listen to anyone who might have another opinion.
Thanks.
Hi, Elaine Wilson from the College of Law. I want to push back on you a little bit on the penalties not being that big of a deal. For some of you may know, if you are going to get barred, you have to do a character and fitness. I know Paul does because he's gone through all of this with us. And if you get even accused of academic integrity issues in some states, you have to report the accusation. Most certainly, if they get violated, we have to report those as well. So saying this is no big deal and we're starting a conversation about Grammarly doesn't necessarily work for us. And it's really a problem, right? Because you don't want to accuse somebody and then cause bar issues when you have a tool that's not very good at detecting what's going on. I don't know that there's a solution for it, but I think a lot of the comments are like, well, if we're not using it, should we just get rid of it? But I think for at least here at the College of Law, and I don't know what the standard is for the other professional schools that have licensure issues, if that's as much of an issue as it is for us. So thank you.
Paul's going to address that, but I say, A, you're right. I apologize. B, I was seeing everything through the lens of undergraduate education, which I tend to do. There are entirely different standards for professional and graduate school. Sure.
Yeah. So we do think about that, and the way we've actually structured our program is so that when we document that, if it is not one of those more egregious cases, I literally make the record say they were found not responsible for the violation at the end of it. As long as they take accountability, they complete whatever we put in front of them from an education standpoint. So that way, when they do have to disclose, whether it's for a law school application or a bar or any of the other professions, they'll disclose there was an allegation. However, I was ultimately found not responsible. So we've done as much as we can to try to minimize that without completely doing away with any level of accountability. And like I said, that's not for every case, and that's not even for every graduate or professional case typically. But that's how we've tried to give our students as much of a benefit of the doubt as we can moving forward.
Hi, Val Gritsanka from School of Medicine. The AI tools are developing very quickly and changing, and the landscape of companies providing AI services is changing very quickly. So it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to invest in one company or one type of thing for a prolonged period of time at a very centralized level as well, because as you mentioned, the AI policies that the faculty decides how they assess AI use or not use in the classroom. So it seems to make sense to give the faculty resources to decide which AI tools they want to use for teaching, rather than having some sort of centralized platform and then hoping that that would be the best, few months later. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
Joe Jones, College of Creative Arts and Media. So I am a media ethicist. I study Silicon Valley. I've been swimming in this for about 8 or 9 years now. I think what Valerie just said is perfect, right? That the detection tools will never keep up with the generative tools. So I do think it is also like whack-a-mole. Somebody else said that. I don't want to take things away from people like Doug, who spoke first, that feel like they need that tool for support. I also think this idea of like a panopticon of like, oh, are we watching you? Like maybe that will deter some people from doing it. But I think to echo Catherine's point the most is to empower faculty. That right now I am in the teaching and learning centers. We have this AI thing through Auburn, and I know we only have like 12 spots, so I'm very grateful for it. But that kind of stuff to me, I think is more helpful for us in order to get some AI literacy to detect it. And I've been swimming in it. I can tell right away. I have conversations with my students, again, teaching ethics, like don't lie to your ethics professor. Like that's the first rule. So I do feel like I have good rapport with my students. Now, Daniel's teaching 100 students at a time. Maybe something like Turnitin is helpful. But I would echo that we need to put these resources, what Catherine said, in the actual faculty, in kind of those programs, and Turnitin, play these guys off each other, right? I mean, you guys know how bidding works, right? I wouldn't stick with Turnitin. I'm also very concerned with Turnitin's kind of surveillance practices and what they do. So I do think there's better ways to use these resources. At the same time, I get everybody's concerns that, it is useful to have there as a backup, but we can also play these vendors off each other and maybe not go with Turnitin would be my kind of 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Hey, thanks, everyone. I appreciate the feedback. I did not know that it was going to be that much, but it was certainly substantive, and I value it greatly, especially on a summer afternoon. So thanks a lot. Greatly appreciated.
And to provide even more feedback, to tie back to our previous conversation about Senate committees, Corey is going to share via email conversations that have already occurred in one of our Senate committees about this. Okay, next report. Keeping with the theme of let's get to know one another. From my vantage point, a thing I've learned in this job is just how incredibly broad and varied the faculty at WVU is. And I would say arguably the set of faculty, even though there are 100 of them that we know in Morgantown, the least about, even compared to the health sciences faculty in Kanawha County and Berkeley County, are our faculty colleagues at Potomac State and down at Beckley. So I asked Jesse and Doug to present a update on faculty life there at those campuses. So they're next up.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Are we good? So, all right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie O'Quinn, and I am an assistant professor of mathematics at WVU Potomac State. I'm joined today by Doug, who is an associate professor of English at WVU Tech. We just want to give a relatively brief update, just kind of on what we've been going through the last year or so. Give an update. I know we've had several things happening this year, so just brief, I promise. So just to start with kind of an overview about the institutions we have. So we are roughly the same size, but we do structure differently in that WVU Tech offers mainly 4-year programs, and we at Potomac State offer mainly 2-year programs. Our student to faculty ratio is similar. I also pulled all of these numbers off of a website that could be outdated, so I apologize if anybody in the room knows that these numbers are not correct. So we have relatively small student to faculty ratio, and unlike WVU, we do have Potomac State is open enrollment and Tech is a rolling admission, which means our student population is very different than the students that would be at Morgantown.
So one of the here we have just some strengths of the divisional campuses, and I think that one of the things that really kind of stands out about the regional campuses is because it has a smaller size, and because they have smaller sizes and because they have smaller class sizes, it allows for a lot of kind of individualized student learning. And so so for example, because through our small class sizes, there's a lot of individual tutoring, a lot of individual meeting with students, and also we get to see students kind of develop over the course of, in case at Tech, it's often 4 years. that and we get to see them like grow and develop because you end up having like multiple classes with them, even when they're not students who are in like your major. And so as there isn't an English major at our on our campus, and I teach mainly GEF courses, but because of that, I still end up seeing students in the first year. I see students in the second year, in the third year, and so there's this greater sense of kind of being involved in students' kind of intellectual growth as they proceed through proceed through college. And I would say that generally is kind of the thing that is really kind of stands out as the main difference, and I think one of the considerable strengths. And I think also it's good that to have smaller colleges in other places in the state to give access to people who live in those areas who might not necessarily have higher education is accessible to them. Many of the students that we have that I have at Tech come from, Raleigh County, the county where Beckley is, or Fayette County, or the other neighboring counties. And so we often see people who maybe wouldn't necessarily go to college, but because there's an institution here that's close to their home, they have access to it. So I'll give you some highlights. Now there are tons and tons of things that have happened on campus, and so I sent out an email asking for possible things, and so these are some of the things that were sent to me. The first page here is all things that are related to the School of Nursing, which is on our campus, which is doing a really, really good job. Dr. Peggy Lambert Fink, who is a associate professor of nursing here on our campus, was awarded the Faculty Merit Foundation's 2025 Professor of the Year Award, which is a big deal. The School of Nursing is doing very well with its enrollment. I was told that it's increasing enrollment for the fall by up to 79%. There's pathways that are opening up to kind of get more students involved, such as the Hep C Level Up Nursing Pathway that was started in Fayette County. And then also they're branching out into other areas. And so there's going to be 2 therapy dogs that are on campus, which I think is nice. And if you could turn to the next page. Some other things have happened on campus. One thing that was a sort of a big deal was that there was $50,000 that was set aside to fund tech mini grants, and 25 or more than 25 faculty applied and were granted some money for their research or for travel or for pedagogical reasons. In the engineering portion, the WVU, or the West Virginia chapter of American Society for Civil Engineers, had their fall technical conference on Tech's campus. In history, we hosted the 15th annual Otis Rice Lecture, and that was Dr. Hutton of Glenville State came and gave a presentation about what was it about? It was about the Pinkerton group, who kind of policed coal camps in the early 20th century in West Virginia. And then also in our area in English, we restarted the campus literary magazine, which is called Image, and we had a lot of really good submissions from that, a lot of poetry. We also had photography that was included, some student essays and short stories. And our plan for that is to eventually put that online. And so we'll have an online campus literary magazine that will be updating yearly.
Thank you, Doug. So I also wanted to give some Potomac State updates. I also sent an email to everybody trying to get kind of what people wanted me to highlight, and I will say no one responded to me. So I am going off of what I know of that has occurred. I'm sure there is more that I am missing here. Our biggest update this like 2025 to 2026 year, which is going into this next year, is our science hall update. As we are a gen ed mainly institution, most of our students go through science hall, and it is by far one of the most outdated buildings that we have. It hasn't really been updated in 76 years, which seems outrageously long. So I put here, we got a huge, I want to say it was like $4.9 million project that we're doing right now. The money came from multiple places. Most of it was from deferred maintenance grants through Hep C. But that has been a huge thing. I put a picture here of what it used to look like about a month ago. I think they're on track to finish sometime by the end of this year, but I don't think they'll be live until 2027. So those are big updates. I know that people that are in the sciences, mainly are nursing students, because we have a program through the W&V nursing, that there were a lot of people saying that our labs were a lot worse than the high school labs. So this will be a huge selling point in moving forward. We also last year expanded the Metro tuition rate. So now Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia get the Metro rate, which is like, I think, $5,000 cheaper than what they were getting before. And then we also have the Ohio tuition reciprocity, which means that students can pay in-state tuition from Ohio. And I know that we've heard a lot of good things about our sports programs using that. So I think that that's been a good thing for enrollment. Since no one responded to me, I feel a little selfish because I'm plugging my own programs. These are two programs that I coordinate right now that we've had pretty good success with at Potomac State. The SI program is rolling into its 6th year. Basically, the SI program is we have peer tutors that sit in the class with the students. The students that are peer tutors have taken the class, they've made an A in it, or by faculty recommendation, but mainly they've made an A in it. They sit in class and we do a lot of active learning with the students. They're kind of like teaching assistants while they're in the classroom. And then after class, they have after school peer tutoring. We've had this program in Math 122, 126, and we've done English, chemistry, bio, and econ this last year. So we've had it a lot. Roughly a quarter of our student population is participating in the program by going. I know it may not seem a lot at WVU, but this last year we had like 200 appointments. So it's like a lot of appointments for our tutoring. And then we are going to be expanding the program into a WVUE pilot in the fall to kind of see if we can target some of the at-risk students. So that will be starting in the fall. We also do a summer bridge program at PSC, and I also think this is like the 5th or 6th year that we're doing this. We do a week before the semester starts. We give the students an opportunity to move in a week early, and they can place out of Math 122 and English 100. Specifically, the Math 122 is important because students who take Math 122 are automatically behind if they're in a science degree. So the goal is to kind of target the students who are going to need the 124 or 126 for their science degrees. We've had pretty good luck with students placing out. I want to say about half of the students that participate place out of either Math 122 or English 100.
Jesse and I talked before this, and the three sort of challenges here that are up on the screen are kind of the main discussions that our faculty have had on the tech campus and also at Potomac State. The first has to do with student population, particularly attracting students. I'm not sure what the current number is, but we're always concerned about enrollments dropping. We're always concerned about not being able to retain students. And so we're trying to like initiatives and trying to engage students in different ways to keep them here, such as through tutoring and that kind of thing. Also, another issue is that in hiring, particularly retaining and recruiting faculty is an issue. Because we have such a small number of faculty, like losing one person or having one position unfilled creates difficulties in our departments. And so we have difficulty often because of the amount of money that we're paying, or because we're mainly a teaching institution, retaining and keeping faculty, and also recruiting faculty. We'll get a lot of applications, for example, for an English position, but then often people turn us down when we offer the job because we don't pay as much money as other institutions do. And then another thing on our campus that faculty have talked about this semester is just the increase in service obligation. Because we don't have as many faculty, all of the committees and everything is all being, populated by basically the same group of people who are kind of running everything. And the more initiatives that we want to do, it requires more faculty involvement for doing it. And I feel that faculty have been feeling stretched thin in regards to service, even so much as perhaps service beginning to interfere with the amount of time that they can spend teaching. And so I think that those are the three sort of like major issues that we're dealing with on our campus, and continue to deal with them pretty much every single year.
I do want to echo what Doug just said about service expectations, but also I want to say that I am on, well, I guess will be again in the fall, but I'm on the WVU faculty welfare, and I do know that this is the service expectations particularly. That is something I've heard WVU, like that main campus, is talking about it as well. So I do think that the service expectations is probably not something necessarily specific to us, but it is a lot when we don't have as many faculty. And I think that's it. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions for our colleagues at Potomac State and Beckley? Daniel.
Just one comment, not a question. One of the things that really does astound me about the faculty at Tech and Potomac State is their presence on our campus as it relates to service. It's really amazing to me. They don't miss any of the meetings. And so like one of the agenda items is people who don't come to meetings, who are on the main campus, and these people never miss meetings. Like Jesse has driven all the way to WVU for events, for other, like a commission that I chair on the committee. So like the service expectations, like, what you're suggesting there, like as someone who chaired faculty welfare, like your little caveat there at the end, Jesse, is you're misspeaking. You are kind of expected to do things that people here aren't. And so like, yeah, it is definitely an issue on our campus, but they show up to every meeting. I've chaired 3 faculty senate committees over the course of the last several years. They don't ever miss meetings. And so I think like what you all do is really also important to what we do here. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you for, your report and all that you all do over there.
That makes me so happy. Thank you, Daniel. I feel bad because I kind of feel like maybe you're tired of seeing me.
And thank you very much for that. Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you all. I appreciate that. Next up is a for information item, the teller's report for the election for the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. I announced the victors in those races at the last meeting. As you will note, except sort of kinda for Ashley, since she's attended the meeting in her role as taco chair, it's an entirely new committee coming up next fall. So I want to do two things. One, I want to thank all the long-term members of that committee, like the people you just heard from, like Cindy, like Emily, like Megan. Just think about who we've heard from like very, very recently. That service over these last few years is really appreciated. As has been brought up many times, there's a lot of service responsibilities in these last few years, and the more that y'all have done, it really meant a lot. But the other thing about that is, and this kind of came up when Leslie was talking about the people applying to serve on our committees, there's a very noticeable uptick tied to like this election cycle, tied to the people requesting committee service opportunities in the last year. And I hope that that's a good sign for the future, that folks see these bodies as useful and that they think that they're doing valuable things in them. So thanks for doing that. The darker for information item kind of report, I'll turn it over to Corey.
Man, that's a welcome. Hello. Before I begin, just to echo some of the conversation from Jesse and Doug, is that I've heard from a lot of you, both in the room and online, about concerns about service and being over-serviced. And I just want you to know that it is a topic of conversation in many circles, particularly coming out of transformation, and a concern about the same service requirements being imposed on a smaller group of faculty. So those conversations are happening, just so you're aware. I didn't introduce myself. As Scott mentioned, I'm Corey Hunt, Faculty Senate Office Administrator. I'm only saying that to these people over here. Most of you already know me. We approved amendments to the faculty constitution earlier this year. One of those changes in that constitution is that each spring, we are required to present a list of faculty senators who do not meet the attendance requirements for faculty senate. That attendance requirement is 2 meetings per semester. I pulled a list of individuals who did not meet that requirements. I removed anyone who had excused absences from that list. The individuals remaining were posted on the agenda as a for information item. I'm not going to bring it up on the screen just because that feels kind of like, hey, look at these guys. So there is no action associated with this report inherently. This is for information. The Senate can choose to do with the information what it wishes, right? My approach in the past has been to tell the constituencies, you should manage yourself. That should be the expectation. These are your representatives, right? If you feel like you're not being properly represented because of whatever situation is happening with your elected representatives, there is a removal option. Individuals, faculty senators, and officers can be removed from their seats by a vote. It requires a 2/3 majority. It requires the motion to be presented to the Senate at least 7 days before the vote. All right. Because this was posted to the agenda, if someone today wanted to make a motion to remove a member for not failing to meet the attendance policy, that could happen. I think that especially as we look at our Senate getting slightly smaller, right? As our Senate body has begun to shrink a little bit. I think it's worth considering, are we being well represented? Are the people that we elect, are they showing up? Are they participating? I think it's an important question to ask. I think the interesting thing is that the unfortunate thing is that we have several School of Medicine faculty on this list. The School of Medicine is experiencing a large decline in their representation in the upcoming year because of the constitution changes, where they went from a 39% max representation of the Senate Assembly down to 25%. So please take that into consideration. Again, there's no action associated with this. Please look at the attachment on the agenda. If you'd like to make a motion to remove someone, that can happen today. It can happen at any meeting. You just have to let us know at least 7 days beforehand so that we can alert the Senate. Are there any questions about the attendance policy, the list that's been posted?
Corey, I have a quick question. Sorry, guys. I
Not-
know.
You've already spoken too many times.
The fact that the School of Medicine is getting smaller, were there people who were slated to be next year, but there's no space for them now because they're getting smaller?
So the way the downsizing is occurring is we had no elections this year for the School of Medicine.
Oh, okay.
They were slated to be one over their limit, which I ignored because I figured naturally that would resolve itself, and it has. We have a couple School of Medicine faculty who are senators who are leaving the institution, so that will take care of that. On the list, I just updated it today to add an additional field showing the term end. About half of the individuals on the list have terms ending this year. So really take no action. And today's our last meeting regardless, right? So not much of a consequence. There's 5 individuals on the list who do have terms extending beyond this year. So something to consider. But the School of Medicine will have an election next year. Basically, I am shifting them back into the normal stage where roughly 1/3 of their terms are ending each year. It just had to be adjusted with 1 year of absence due to their overall size.
Okay. Because I was going to say, like, there's a lot of people who had 0 times they came to the meetings, and those would be easy enough to remove if we needed to get rid of some School of Medicine people because of the reduction. But it sounds like that's taken care of itself. I personally think you should put their names up there. I don't want to make a motion to like kick these people out. Like, I'm not that person, but I do think the public shaming is maybe the only thing that might work. But I'm not gonna, that was just my opinion, but okay. Thank you. Thank you for that information, Corey.
So Leslie Cottrell, School of Medicine. Just a couple of things. One, clarification. I know that Senate goes, or I imagine Senate service goes a long way for promotion and tenure. So this list exists. It's after the promotion and tenure review process. Does this information go back to kind of negate, hey, you didn't really do Senate service in some way? And I know, yeah, it's.
It's funny because how people choose to put this information in their file differs from person to person, right? I usually try to send out letters of service. It doesn't seem like everyone necessarily needs that to put it in their file that they served. We're experiencing the same thing with Senate committees, right?
Yeah.
We see a lot of the load falling on a smaller amount of people because we have 20 people sign up for a committee and 8 members show up regularly to those meetings throughout the year. And yet I think we have 20 people from this committee putting that they served on that committee on their promotion and tenure packet, right? So that is something to consider. That's something that we discussed a few years ago when Dave Hauser was still here as the faculty secretary, was the question of how do we want faculty senate service and service on internal committees at WVU in general? How do we want that to be referenced and to appear for promotion and tenure purposes? Are we taking into account actual hours of service? And so right now we don't have a standardized way of that, I think, overall. And that's probably something we should probably look at doing for faculty senate. Regarding retroactively, I'm not sure how punitive we want to be about it. I think I'd probably look to my left before making any of those decisions.
You've just set you've noted the bar is, if I had a pretty significant clinical schedule, what I needed to do is to let you know, right?
Yeah.
And if this means I didn't, just to clarify.
Yeah,
Just
I
the
think
excused, right?
so.
The excused.
Yeah, generally. So to clarify, the faculty constitution says that senators are expected to attend all meetings. I take attendance at every single meeting. You guys see the iPads. If you attend online, I log your attendance automatically. If you're not going to be at a meeting, the only thing you have to do is reply to the meeting agenda broadcast and say, hey, I'm not gonna be able to make it. And I mark you as excused. That's about it. regarding the promotion and tenure information, letters of service and so on, if you are on a timeline where you need a letter sometime in the middle of the year rather than during the summer, just send me an email and I can develop those for you.
Cindy Graves, School of Medicine. With the downsizing of the representation from the School of Medicine, it would have been nice to have this information prior, because if these people are going to be dismissed from the Senate, we weren't allowed to hold elections, and that would have opened up seats for us to have elections this year. For some of us who have been to every meeting and would have liked to rerun for Senate, we weren't permitted to. And if those spaces are open, then our constituency is going to be lower.
I understand that. Again, this was a new policy implemented with the passing of the constitutional amendments. If any constituencies out there ever want to reach out to me and ask for attendance records, this isn't a private thing. I don't try to keep information from our members, from our constituents. If you want to know about the attendance records of your assembly, of your elected representatives, you can ask me and I can pull those reports very easily.
Valgritanka School of Medicine. In terms of reporting service requirements, we're all using digital measures. So it would actually be helpful to have letters of service maybe automatically sent out every year, and that could include the attendance. And then it's up to the faculty choice if they want to add that letter or not to support their service, because we're supposed to substantiate everything we report on the digital measures.
Yeah, I'm developing the processes to make it automatic now. We have the new attendance tracking software this year. Before, everything was done on an Excel spreadsheet and it was a little bit clunky, but those should be happening automatically with this year.
Okay.
Regarding including attendance, I think that's something to consider. It has been proposed that we include that on committee service as well. So I think we'll just need to discuss that as a leadership team.
Hey, Lauren Prinzo, Extension. Correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but the Constitution also says from here on, the attendance report will go with the elections for next cycle.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So when we think about like School of Medicine, if you're receiving the attendance report, then that constituency can self-eliminate a representative who's hasn't been well representing the group from that perspective. So I think that over these cycles, as it continues, will take care of some of it itself. And I also just want to say, in terms of, I think there's a lot of, from a public administration perspective, a lot of policing that can happen with organizations like ours, but I think we have to be cautious to do that when they're elected representatives elected by a constituency. Someone could not be attending these meetings, but could be super active in a committee setting, and their constituency could feel well represented by them. So I think that when we think about removal, it should be from their own representative constituency as opposed to from this central body.
Yeah, that's why I was referencing that. My advice has been constituencies self-police themselves, right? I have typically recommended that any motions regarding membership come from the constituency where that individual resides. That just seems the fairest way. That's one of the things I kind of dislike about posting a public list and saying, hey, look at these naughty children, is that it kind of puts the action before the entire Senate rather than from the single constituency. Megan.
Hi, Corey. So the question would be, though, if the School of Medicine approached those individuals who hadn't attended this year, could then other individuals be placed in those Senate seats?
So as soon as there is a vacant seat on the Senate, I immediately start to try to fill that vacancy. The practice in the Senate has been to look at the most recent election and look at the individual receiving the next most votes, and basically go down that line of eligible candidates from the prior election until you find someone to fill that seat. If there are no individuals on that list, or if the election has been more than a year in the past, then I will hold an open election for the vacant seats.
Okay, so if the School of Medicine faculty who attend regularly wanted to talk to each other basically and address the attendance issues with these outstanding faculty for their 2026, 2027 years and beyond, then they could elect to do that and then hold a special election this summer, essentially.
Correct. So if we had a successful motion to remove, say, I think the 3 or 4 members from the School of Medicine that had terms extending beyond this year, that was successful in the Senate and those members were removed, then I would immediately afterwards reach out to the School of Medicine constituency, open up nominations and proceed from there.
So does the School of Medicine want to do that? I mean, isn't it here where that would have to happen? Like, right?
It could happen here, yes.
Only because if somebody's, there's no recall function, it sounds like otherwise, besides right now,
Or
if it goes on.
at, like, say, the September meeting.
Okay.
As I
Okay,
said,
just putting it out there. I'm not in the School of Medicine, so.
it just has to be, so a removal of member, I mean, so there's a means of removing members, and there's a means of removing members not meeting the attendance requirements, right? So this is the only way someone's gonna be called out by faculty senate for not meeting attendance requirements directly. Anyone can be removed at any time by a motion to remove a member, as long as it's made 7 days in advance of a faculty senate meeting. It just requires a 2/3 majority vote at that meeting. So I'm here to entertain motions to remove Joe Jones. Any other questions? Yeah, I think honestly, my recommendation is look at the report, discuss within your constituency, right? If someone from your constituency is on that group, have an internal discussion, consider what your representation looks like next year and if it's going to meet your needs. If you don't think it's going to, we can present a motion at the September meeting and adjust from there. Thank you all.
I'll just add one other thing I've learned in the last 2 years in this position is how incredibly varied the constituencies are and how connected the people in the constituencies are. Some colleges are very connected, people talking to one another all the time. Some are not, and the same thing holds for the different sets of, say, Statler senators, Potomac State senators, et cetera. Now, obviously, in certain situations like Elaine, not a ton of people to talk to in terms of your consistency. But I think if you think back to when we revised the Constitution, part of the reason why we put that first article in there, kind of strengthening shared governance language more broadly, was in part just to try and get you all in these, say, less talkative parts of the university to start to hopefully have the position where you feel like you can do more of that amongst yourselves toward like whatever end it would be. Because I think kind of to Corey's general point, it really makes the most sense for things like this, for it to come from the constituency. I don't think, generally speaking, coming from Eberly College, I would feel appropriately to sort of say, oh, Doug Terry at Tech shouldn't be a senator anymore. I think this kind of thing does need to kind of be based on a constituency basis. So I would hope that kind of y'all would think through, are you currently satisfied with how your constituency talks amongst itself? Or are there things y'all can do to better make those connections? If you're satisfied, fantastic. If not, keep in mind there's sometimes costs you don't always see associated with that. Is there any new business?
Hello again, Ron Reeser, Statler College. Last couple of meetings, we had some discussions about the elimination of the LGBTQ+ Center and the Center for Black Culture, merging into the Center for, let me see if I get all the words in the right order, Community Connections and Culture, or the CCCC. And I met with Javier McCoy, Julia Myers, and the other former faculty fellows of the LGBTQ+ Center last week, I think. And while I can't speak for all of the faculty fellows, what I can say is that I personally am cautiously optimistic. I was happier coming out of that meeting than I was beforehand. I still think that the higher levels really botched the process for the creation of that center and the rollout. And I was pretty disappointed with some of the answers from last time, but I think that Javier and Julia are going to be running things effectively. The Faculty Fellows Program will be continued. Trainings will be continued. Events like Lavender graduation will be continued. Julia says that the budget is going up. There will be consultations with students, and that sounds like a good idea to me for a program in student life. I don't remember the specifics about how they will be involved, but there will be something like a panel for student accountability about how the programming works. My remaining reservation is it's kind of like hide your gays, hide your blacks, which I don't particularly care for. It feels like the minorities are being shoved under the rug and hidden away behind a name that nobody knows what that name means, and it doesn't actually sound like it does anything. Other than that, if all the programming is still there, including the involvement of faculty and continuing trainings and other programming that benefits faculty, staff, community, et cetera, it's better than nothing, and it's similar to what we already had with somewhat less visibility. So I just wanted to offer that as a follow-up because we were kind of raging about it previously, and I didn't want that to just kind of disappear into the void. If anybody has any questions about what was discussed, I can address it, but I'm also not speaking for that group necessarily. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Also, I'll share that I have a meeting with at least three, this might be a longer list, people from President Benson's office about that next week. Any other new business? Wow, they're not usually this long, just so you know. Okay, then. Time for some ceremony. You're almost out, I promise, you're almost out. We have now reached the point of where it's time to close the WVU Faculty Senate meetings for the 2025-2026 academic year. When I was elected by the members of this body 2 years ago, I knew it was a serious responsibility. I see you, I see how hard you work, often under very challenging circumstances. I also see the path-breaking research you carry out, the works you create, the teaching you do, the education you provide to society in creating a better world for the future. I know what you do is important. I know it's special. I've never really wanted to let you down. So I'm humbled and grateful for trust. Additionally, the political scientist side of me knows how people are organized and the rules and institutions that they create and work under both have a great deal to do with how successful they are. And I would like to think that across the last 2 years, both under Diana and under myself, through the FEC changes, through the Constitution changes, through the ongoing committee changes, through our committee work, that we have set up a situation that will hopefully take both individual faculty members and the body itself into a more successful future, singularly and collectively. Here's hoping. Matt Valenti has served very ably in this role before, and he has both the temperament and the breadth of experience to hit the ground running, working on behalf of the WVU faculty. I've known Matt for many years. He's both an excellent scholar and is committed to supporting both our teachers and our researchers, definitely including our grad students. If you don't know that yet, you're going to probably hear a lot about faculty grad student connections with Matt Valenti as the Faculty Senate Chair. And he seems ideally suited at this time to lead this body as we move forward into a new era at WVU. At this time, therefore, I would like to hand the gavel to Matt Valenti to adjourn us for today and take over as Faculty Senate Chair.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Scott. But before I go any further, I would like to ask you to please join me in thanking Scott for his dedication and his leadership over the past year. So thank you, Scott. And he told me that I have the podium, so I can go as long as I want. So maybe we want to try to break the record for the longest Senate meeting ever, which we may have already done. Now, the funny thing is we were talking about whether or not to have this meeting because according to the Constitution, June is meant to be optional. And I wasn't sure if we'd have enough content for a meeting, but I think you proved me otherwise. So anyway, I'll just be really brief. It is my honor to once again
and my honor and privilege to serve the Faculty Senate over the next year. I look forward to working with you, all of you, to help build on Scott's legacy and strengthen a few things. Faculty engagement, faculty voice, and shared governance. And so with that, I wish you all a good remainder of the summer. I do have to ask, is there any other, hope the answer is no, is there any other business to come before the Senate?
Matt's better with Robert's rules.
Did check Robert's rules on this. Okay, so hearing none, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting for the academic year. So.